Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael Sandler, your host on Inspire Nation, along with my ever-adventurous, itching to travel wifey, Jessica Lee. If you've ever wanted to shine bright and live your life to the fullest, then do we have the Dive Into the Unknown show for you. Today we'll talk about the power of the unknown, stepping off the cliff, and why going where you've never gone before can be so powerful and enlightening. That plus we'll talk about heading south, dolphins and beaches, looking inward, belly rubs and lounging in the sun, potato chips and core work, and what in the world skateboarding on a volcano has to do with anything. So welcome back to the show, Jessica. Are you ready to shine?
I sure hope so, because the first time around I wasn't really.
Yeah, it's our second day attempting this interview. I think we gave it a go yesterday. It's all a blur, and then we just took a break after trying to record it once today. And I have a feeling the third time is the charm.
Yes.
So with that said, if it's not the charm, we're good for today, because where are you going, or what are you doing tomorrow?
Well, first I wanted to share about why the previous one flopped.
You go, girl.
Well, it was just really fascinating to watch. I discovered that I have triggers that put me back into my old programming that says what I have to say doesn't matter. And one of the triggers was you happen to be doing a lot of talking in our last attempt. And there's nothing wrong. You didn't do anything wrong with that. But when somebody does a lot of talking, and I'm laughing because I'm thinking, when someone is long-winded and rambling, not that you were.
Well, and my thinking, it's kind of a circuitous logic, because my thinking was, each time I stop, I'm getting this kind of glazed over look, so I better keep going. And you're thinking, each time he talks for a long time, I get a glazed over look because he's talking for so long.
Yeah, and maybe the glazed over look is because I've lived with you and I've heard everything you've said. But then again, you live with me, you've heard everything I've said, or maybe not. Maybe I don't even talk that much to you. But the point is, you're doing a lot of talking. And I started to go into this autopilot, or this automatic programming that is overriding the new programming that I'm trying to put in. And the new programming I'm trying to put in is my opinion does matter, my voice does matter. I do have things of value to share. People do want to hear what I have to say. Actually, I should say that out loud more often.
Do you want to repeat that one more time for people? I'm serious.
If I can remember, I do have important things to share. People do want to hear what I have to say. Okay.
That's good, and I want to give that the stamp of approval on this show. Woohoo!
So when you were talking for what seemed like to me a long time, I'm laughing again because I hear these. I'm filtering what I'm saying. I'm like, in my head, I'm hearing when you're talking for eons. That's what I heard in my head, right?
Well, thank you for getting that out there with people.
And everything you were saying is of value, and you're saying it so well and eloquently. Like, I don't say things like that, right? At least I don't right now.
I challenge you on that one.
We don't have the same way of speaking, and I admire how you speak. So that's that.
Thank you.
I go into autopilot and I start thinking, okay, I'll just take a back seat here. I'll just listen. I'll just be, what's the word?
Spectator?
Yes, exactly. And I'll just let Michael do all the talking, because clearly he could just record the solo show by himself without me. So therefore, I am not needed. And then when you would finally stop talking, I'd been like already unintentionally checked out, that I had nothing to say. Like my programming had said, stop even trying to think of something to say or to even think of sharing anything because he's got it all handled. And I'm laughing now, right? But it was actually tearing me up inside. And I actually ended up crying by the end of 45 minutes in.
Well, it tears you up on two things. One, that you feel like you have nothing to share, and then you get the worst possible case scenario is suddenly I'm putting you on the spot and going, so what do you have to say?
Oh, yeah. And you know, I'm drawing a blank, or I start speaking because I'm prompted to speak and I have to say something, and then a couple sentences in, I'm like, I don't even know what point I'm trying to make. I'm just speaking for the sake of speaking now. Or maybe I did have a point, but I don't remember because I'm too busy thinking about that awkward moment that might not get edited out. And now we're on YouTube. We're putting these shows on YouTube now. I mean, the show has been on YouTube for a while, but we're putting my recording with you on YouTube. So I feel like there's more pressure. It's like, well, now I can really see how awkward I am.
You're brave. You're brave. Not that you're awkward. I don't believe you are at all. But you're brave for putting yourself out there. You resisted that for a good year, and then you've started doing that. And that, for somebody who I think you would describe yourself as an introvert.
For now, but again, labels are limiting.
Thank you. That's why I got thumbs up over here.
I know the researchers say that, if you're introvert for life. That's immutable. That's what you are. And same for extrovert. But I'm not so convinced. But for now, my preference is to partake in more introverted ways of being.
I have a beautiful guest on the show later today, Eldon Taylor, and his will come out probably tomorrow. When you're listening to this, it'll probably be out the following day. And he talks about how we can completely change our personalities over our lifetime. And I've seen Michael 1.0, 2.0, probably 3.0, or probably on 4.0, but that you can actually completely change your personality. And so and he talks about you can change your IQ, you can change your strengths, you can change the way you speak. So why can't you change, quote unquote, introvert to extrovert?
Because it's not like it's a soul imprint. It's not like I carry introvertedness stamped on my soul from lifetime to lifetime. It's not really who I am in the bigger sense of who I am. It's more of a personality that, yeah, has probably some genetic roots, but we know from epigenetics that our genes can change too.
Mm-hmm. And I was thinking it was, from what little I know of your childhood, it was a protective mechanism for you, that actually helped you and served you incredibly well. And so it would have a feedback loop of wiring itself and getting positively rewarded for being quiet and wiring it in some more.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, when you said that, like, I start to feel all the sadness well up. I'm like, no, let's not go there right now.
All right. Steer the ship, Ms. Lee. Steer the ship. This is your show today.
So back to your original question, which was a very good question. I really felt called to tangent there briefly and share where I'm at. Your question is about where I'm flying to tomorrow, which is actually very exciting. Tomorrow I am flying down to North Carolina to go visit Emerald Isle.
Woohoo! So Emerald Isle, I guess I'll describe what it is, and then we'll talk about how this came about. Does that sound good?
Yes. And just so the audience knows, I already talked to Michael about this beforehand. I do want him to spend quite a bit of time talking about what Emerald Isle is like because he's so good at that.
I'm a little, I don't like using the term gun anything, but gun shy or...
So if he starts rambling, it's pre-approved.
Where do you go from there? I have no idea. Emerald Isle is an island on the Crystal Coast of it's kind of the middle. If you look at North Carolina and you see how it kind of has this bend is in it, where it's no longer angled diagonally to the north, but instead is south facing. That's where Emerald Isle is. It's part of what's called the Crystal Coast. It has some amazing clear waters there. It's very quiet. It's hours from almost any major city. There's Jacksonville, which isn't too far, Jacksonville, North Carolina. But it's supposed to be a very quiet place most of the year. Burdens up from 3,000 or 4,000 people to 50,000 people in the summer with tourists playing on the beach. It is a 21 or 22 mile long length of beach and sand, and I don't know if it's a mile, a couple miles wide at its widest point. It's close to connected to the mainland, and then it has a sound right behind it where it appears to be one of the true sea kayaking and estuary kayaking meccas of this country. And okay, without getting too long-winded,
and there are dolphins and whales and sea turtles.
There are I had Jeffrey Slater on the show a few weeks ago, and Jeffrey Slater's book, Imagine, is a story. He teaches you life lessons from a story of a dolphin, and a story of a surfing dolphin at that. Not surfboard surfing, but surfing in the waves. After Jeffrey's interview, I went and looked up surfing dolphins, or after reading his book, I looked up surfing dolphins online, found these amazing pictures of dolphins surfing in the waves. When I looked up Emerald Isle, one of the first photos that came up on the first page of Google search and images was a picture of 3 dolphins. It was like a large dolphin, medium dolphin, and baby dolphin all surfing in a wave together. And I'm like, oh my God, that's a sign. I'd just been looking up surfing dolphins. So I thought that was really cool. And one last thing about perspective, where it is, it's located south of Kitty Hawk. People are familiar with Kitty Hawk because that's where Orville and Wilbur Wright took their first flights, the Wright brothers. So, yeah, and and you found out, so I can't help but think I'm being long-winded now, but whales, tell me about the whales. What did you find out in the synchronicity on the whales?
All I found out was that there have been more and more whale sightings there. I believe there were 16 whale sightings in 2016. I'm not sure about that. Don't quote me on that. So that actually doesn't sound like that many.
I read there are more whale sightings that in a whale watch you wouldn't be guaranteed a whale sighting, but there are more and more. There's a pod of like 882. I don't know why that number comes in my head. Humpback whales, the specific pod that comes through the area each year. And I just remember a few key things before we left Maui. And I left Maui kind of on tears for these specific things. One is that I would go swimming and swim down just 10 or 20 feet deep. Okay, that sounds pretty far, but I would sit on the bottom on the sandy bottoms in Maui and just listen to the humpback. I won't even try to make all of their noises, but it was such a spiritual experience, and I didn't want to miss that. And the other is that we had just gotten into using a 6-person outrigger canoe on Maui, where everybody would kind of dig with their oar in unison and then switch sides and dig in unison. It's this canoe with a pontoon on the outside of it that keeps its balance in the ocean. And ocean kayaking, just something inside of me flipped and on switch, and oh my God, it was like the most incredible experience. And when you would get these things moving fast, it was hydrodynamic to where it would kind of lift up. And all of a sudden, particularly if we had a tailwind or a wave pushing us forward, you'd feel like you're flying along in this thing, particularly heading towards the shore. And I didn't want to lose that. And so when you told me about the whales, I started looking and I found out about the pods of whales. I found out how it's a mecca for canoeing and kayaking. I'm going, wow.
Okay, yeah, so maybe we should tell people.
Thank you.
Why?
We're reverse engineering this show today.
That last little segment was not pre-approved, but I'm still doing okay. So
wow.
Let's not let that happen again. Okay, so I'm actually flying down there to check it out as a potential new place for us to move to. And this all happened within the last few days. I bought my ticket on Saturday. We made the decision on Friday. We were told about an opportunity last Wednesday, which is less than a week ago. Do you want to share?
Sure. So, and this gets into intention, and we can go there as little or as much as you would like. You're driving today. The short version is we were at our favorite burrito shack last week.
Yeah, where you can get buy one get one free on Wednesdays.
Woohoo!
Oh no, sorry, buy one get one half off.
Yeah, not quite as good. Still cool. And we would resist eating the second burrito there at the same time. We would take it back with us to eat later. But we were hanging out there, and we were talking about, because the home we're living in is going up for sale. And so we get to move one way or the other, and we've been packing things up. I can look at the moving van outside in the driveway as we speak. And we didn't know where we were going to go or what we were going to do. And I think it was something along the lines of, it's going to take a paradigm shift. Either we're going to have to figure this out, or something or someone is going to have to magically appear and give us a place, suggest a place, a place that is going to help us get there. Because with the show and with working 7 days a week, I don't know how we're going to research where we're going. I don't know what to look into. These aren't complaints.
We had been doing a lot of research. We had been thinking about Colorado briefly, even though we were thinking, Natasha Alter, who is an astrocartographer, she was on the show, and she mentioned that according to my chart, if we went to Colorado or this like whole corridor in that area, then I would pull us out.
Which you did once already.
I did do that once. It's hard to imagine me pulling ourselves out. I mean, I don't know. Anyway, but it would kind of feel like going back in time, because we've already been there, done that. And we'd also looked at California a lot, and all up and down California. And for some reason, it just never seems to click with us. So Natasha also mentioned the East Coast, and she had said the East Coast has a sweetness for us. Mm-hmm. And we kind of wrote that off. We were like, oh, yeah, that's nice, but there's no way we're going to move somewhere along the East Coast if we have a choice. So we hadn't really considered the East Coast at all.
No, we had kind of, it's interesting, we all have filters and blinders on, and we are kind of on autopilot, must go west, must go west, must go west. And she's telling us where places would be sufficient. It's geocartography or astrocartography is about helping you find out where your spirit will be best suited. And she wasn't finding any place out west that really made us shine. And she did say in passing that the East Coast had a sweetness or was very sweet. We passed that off, but then as we started coming back to this, we're like, wait a second. What's wrong with sweet?
Well, we were like, maybe we have a limiting belief about the East Coast. And I definitely did. I know that, and you did too, especially when it came to moving back here from Maui. You really resisted moving back to New Jersey.
What you resist persists, and it turns out it was absolutely, stunningly the best move I believe we possibly could have made. Now, we're chameleons. We're open cups where there's room for change, and we're willing to adapt to any place. But I think it was perfect. Absolutely perfect.
Yeah. And this place has changed a lot since I grew up here. I remember the first week that I was here, I was at the post office looking at a bulletin board, and I was seeing all these flyers up for things like meditation and alternative healing. And I was like, wow, people here are a lot more open-minded than when I had left about less than 20 years ago, but almost.
So if I take us back to the burrito shack. So we're saying that something magical is going to happen. You'd been challenging us lately on limiting beliefs and stepping back and saying that's a limiting belief and that's a limiting belief. And even when you step back several levels, that's a limiting belief. And maybe we'll get into intention work in a minute if you want us to go there. But the short story is we came home from this, and I don't remember, I think I got ready to coach, something to that effect, within 3 hours of saying something is going to have to magically appear, or someone is going to have to magically appear and have a place for us to move to that feels just right, or something like that.
Yeah, I was like, surely we know somebody who has either an extra piece of land or like a little cottage on it that they're not using. And then we got home.
And we got offered an opportunity you can't refuse. We got offered an opportunity on the Crystal Coast of North Carolina. And when inspiration strikes with us, we tend to move quickly, or hopefully we move quickly. And so I showed it to you, and what were your first thoughts?
Well, I mean, you can't deny the synchronicity.
No.
So I just felt like, well, this is alignment. We're on track. We're being shown our next step.
So what's interesting from there is that there's so much we don't know. We're stepping into the flow.
Yeah. I think we're able to step into the flow because even though we had done all this research, you more than me, about where we might possibly move to, you didn't have any attachment. You let it go. And you asked, okay, maybe it's this place or something better.
Mm-hmm. A little bit of my parameters, which is instead of saying specifically I want mountains and cliffs or whatever specific it was, I want to be near water. I want to be able to swim. I want nature in my backyard. I want peace. I think that may have been it. The big thing, I want to be able to, the nature in my backyard, be able to run without having to really drive far to be able to run. And of course, I would say, or something better. And certainly I wanted a lot more than that, but I'd been whittling it down because I'd been looking at my list, and my list was this very heady checklist of exactly what I wanted, which was a limiting belief. And so I was letting it all go and getting to the essence. And it's interesting because I believe that place didn't exist, but yet I still wrote it down.
And I kept my very long list of things that I wanted in a future home because my belief was it might not happen now, but it might happen sometime in the future. And one of the big things on my list was majestic mountains in the backdrop, snow-capped, ideally. Because some of my favorite places on Earth have been Alaska and New Zealand and Colorado. And I very much miss that. But I don't need it right now. It's a preference, so I can let go of it. But I believe that eventually, at some point, we'll have that again.
I think it's important to put those requests out there. And you can dream with all the specificity you want. There's nothing wrong with that. But keeping in the or something better, or what I call the open cuppedness. You have to have a cup that is not full so that something new can come into that cup. The unexpected, the magical, the miracles can appear.
Yeah. And North Carolina is definitely unexpected. I mean, we did start looking at even like Pennsylvania because just out of convenience, because it was close, so we wouldn't have to take that much time off from work, and it's so close to my family, and they were pushing for it too because they don't want us to move far away. So we thought being open-minded in that sense.
I had just started looking at the Poconos because it has hills. In theory, they're small mountains, not necessarily majestic, but small mountains. And I was saying, well, it's really, sorry for anybody who lives there, but brutally cold in the winter and rather dark, but maybe I could be even okay with that. So that's actually cool, because what I was doing, it was putting out ripples into the universe of I'm openness.
Yes. Yeah. You were practicing being open. That's awesome.
And so, I'd gone on Craigslist and looked, and I'm like, well, it'd be a real easy move, only a few hours drive away.
And I had thought, if we go further south, then it's going to be more humid and muggy and more mold. And I'm still mold wary, I guess, from being sick with mold toxicity in the past. But on the coast, when you've got that constant breeze, I don't think you feel the humidity nearly as much as if you were inland.
I haven't heard on a single thing, and I tend to dive into researching things way too much. I have two speeds when it comes to research. As you've seen or heard on any of the shows, I either don't dive in at all, or I want to know everything I possibly can, and I haven't heard a single person yet talk about a stifling hot summer.
So let's talk a little bit about what it's like stepping into the unknown or opening yourself up to something better. What does that look like for you? How do you get comfortable with the uncomfortable? I know it's an oxymoron.
I think it's, to get uncomfortable with anything, or no, to get uncomfortable is easy. To get comfortable takes practice, takes strengthening that muscle. The more that you step into the unknown, the more confident you become that you're going to survive the unknown, and the more comfortable you become in being able to step into the unknown again. So it takes practice. And it also takes a first step. That one step. You don't have to have the whole thing laid out in front of you. I call it breadcrumbs or a treasure hunt. You go.
I mean, we don't know for certain that we're going to be moving there. I'm going down there to check it out. And I'm confident that probably within seconds of crossing the city limits, I will know whether this is the right place or not. Because I experienced this about a year and a half ago when I flew out to Arizona to check out Sedona, Arizona, and Tucson. And I fell in love with Sedona. I'd move there in a heartbeat, but it doesn't meet all of your parameters, so that's fine for now.
Water. Be swimming in the sand.
There's a river. People play in the river. I didn't say swim. Maybe you could. But so I was driving down from Sedona to Tucson, which is about a 4-hour drive. Mm-hmm. And as I got closer and closer, I'm feeling more and more skeptical or uneasy. And then as soon as I saw the sign for the city limits and I crossed that and I knew I was in Tucson officially, I was like, my body, or like all of me was screaming, no.
Oh, no.
No offense to anyone who lives there. It just wasn't feeling right for me. It's perfect for a lot of people. And there are some really special places there, like Sabino Canyon. I love that place. It was so peaceful, such a sacred place. But I still stayed open. I said, okay, I'm not going to turn the car around just yet because that would be kind of impulsive and rash. I'm going to give it a few hours.
Oh my gosh.
No, I gave it one night. I gave it a few hours and one night, because it didn't make sense to make that long drive back home. I was ready the late afternoon, and I did check it out. I checked out Sabino Canyon. That felt great, but once I left Sabino Canyon, it still felt very wrong. And so later the next day, I drove back to Sedona, and I got to spend a few more days in Sedona. Yeah, the point is, you've got to take that step and and explore your possibilities.
It's really what it comes down to is what you've been saying lately. You've been challenging each belief. And you've been saying, is this the only place? Well, maybe, maybe not. Is this what we need? What maybe, maybe not. And you keep asking and challenging each step of the way. And I think that's allowing the universe for the or something better right now, or allowing the magic to take place because we're now open to the magic.
Yeah, we're creating the space for it. We're, I mean, if we could have done this entirely differently and just forced ourselves to pick a place somewhere in the country and just said, that's the place, that's it. We're making it happen no matter what. And just saying that sounds like feels awful.
And I've been resistant to that because I know that you can do that. You could. We have been experts at making water flow uphill. And every time at the end of the day, it is hurt and hurt badly. When those doors close on you, don't knock down the door. Walk around the door if you can, but if you can't get that open, there's a reason. It doesn't mean it's the end of the world. It doesn't mean what you're doing is wrong, but step back and look at the why. And so certainly we could say, that's it. Come heck or high water. It's a funny term, high water. We're moving.
Marin County. Marin County is the place to go because it's got the techies that are merging with the spiritual gurus, and that's the wave of the future. And yeah, it's just got this like intellectual liveliness, which on paper we thought would like really feed us and feed the show. But it is really expensive out there. We could like force our way in and like work our asses off to somehow afford it there. But that just doesn't sound like fun. That sounds the opposite of open and expansive. That sounds really constricting and limiting.
And we had a guest on recently who was talking about don't live just below your means, live as far below your means as you can. And for this show, where we're feeding everything we have back into the show, it would be nice to have a little security underneath us rather than continuously be moving, even as the show grows, even as our income has taken off, but to be funneling all back into a place, for instance, a rental, as we're building things. It doesn't sound like a good dance to do with money, for example. A good relationship to build with our money.
Yeah, it'd be extremely stressful. And right now, I think we're all about doing everything we can to lower our stress.
I know I am, because it's hard not to get butterflies before each show and with doing and with all the prep time. And I know for my longevity on this planet, I get to work on taking that stress down more and more. And so when I think of Crystal Coast and the pictures that I've seen, and I have this vision too of writing our next book, maybe even our next several books, which we started this fall, but then the show just, it was a choice of prioritization, focus on the show. We'll get back to the book shortly. I picture our stress levels going down, and I picture it being very quiet in the winter as a cocoon, not a bad thing, for us to be able to crank out books for people and really take our messages out to the world and to a whole nother level. Okay, I just learned a couple of days ago, we're in 200 countries. We are out to the world, but to really take things to the next level.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about why people might resist change or going into the unknown.
It's something I'm going to be talking about with Eldon Taylor on tomorrow's show as well. He mentioned specifically towards the beginning of the book I've been reading that people want change more than anything else in the world, and find change the most painful thing in the world. And I couldn't agree with that more. We say, in fact, the reason if you're listening to the show is because you want to improve your life. I get it. We want to improve our lives as well. That's why we get to read all of these great books and have these great shows. So we want that, but then there's an internal conflict between wanting that and saying, not now, I'm not ready, when the planets align, when this takes place, not today, I'm either comfortable or that's just a little bit too painful, maybe tomorrow.
And then that's why people end up being stuck.
So maybe tomorrow can turn out to be a lifetime.
Yeah. And the other point that I wanted to make is oftentimes when it comes time to making change, it requires admitting to yourself that your original plan, quote unquote, failed. And so there's this mourning. You have to let go of your own plan. And it's kind of like watching, you think that you're watching your dream die. But in reality, you might just be pivoting. You might just be taking another step towards another version of your dream.
I think that grieving process is incredibly important. So we had on Tama Keeves recently, and she was talking about this, and she has a year without fear, and that after being a high-paid Harvard graduate attorney, she ended up quitting her very lucrative law practice and took quite a while of being in that cocoon of actually sleeping a lot, working as a waitress, which she really loved working as a waitress, but there was a lot of time of cocooning herself, just sleeping, not doing much. As she went through this grieving process, rather than jumping out of one job and saying, I need to find myself, let me jump immediately into something else. You, in a sense, did that. And I don't know if you thought about it that way, but...
I have. Yeah, when I was sick with the mold toxicity, I was in essence in a cocoon. It was breaking down all of the limiting beliefs and the thought patterns and habits. And that takes a while. It takes a while to get into a new habit, and it takes a while to break old habits. And so I had to be out of commission for, really out of commission for about a year in order to break free from my old ways of being, my old programming. And I think that's why a lot of people end up in these health emergencies or being sick, because it's actually time for them to deconstruct their lives so that they can rebuild in a much more healthier and hopefully self-loving way.
I like that, deconstruct our lives. And that's part of what I see down there is it's not exactly who we expect it to be or where we expect it to be. But I think, the combination of the water and the sand and a slower pace when the show is such fast-paced will help us to, I guess in a sense, put our lives under a microscope, but I don't mean it in a heady sense, but to kind of feel out what's next for us.
Yeah, I agree. And who knows, what's next might be there for a while. I'm totally open, even though there are no mountains with snow.
So I see it going this way, and then see if you have any last points you want. This is your show today. You're going tomorrow morning. I know when you cross the city limits, I've said 5 minutes. 5 minutes from when you get there, you will know stay or go. And if it's stay, woohoo! We'll be down there in about a month or so. It'll happen fast. If it's go, woohoo! We'll find someplace else. Why? Because we shifted the energy. By taking that step, I call it to be unmoored, to cast away the lines, to allow the ship to move free. That's when we're in the current, we're in the flow, and universe can guide us again because we're not stuck in our own ways. We haven't put down a permanent anchor and say, again, no matter what comes, this is where I'm supposed to be. So tomorrow is a beautiful casting off of the lines for us to get back in the flow.
Yeah, and I'm going down with the hopes of just meeting some really nice people. and making some new friends and enjoying some nice scenery. And if I happen to fall in love with a place, then I'll also have an intention of finding a place to rent. But I am totally open. I can't say I don't have attachments because there's always attachments that I'm unaware of. I learned that from my last trip where I got really sick in Taiwan and the Philippines. I was attached to the idea that I would be healthy and enjoy a nice vacation.
Which you are hoping for this time around too, in a sense.
Yeah, I am. I think I'll be fine because I'll be on my own timeline.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, it's not attached to the outcome at all. Excited, so excited to see how it goes. So excited that we're making this big energy shift. And I remember when we were on Maui and we were looking for cars, and we went one day to check out a little Miata, was it MX-5 or something like that? And before we went to see the car, I said, I have no idea if we're going to get the car or not, but we're going to make a cool friend. And we ended up making a lifelong friend in David. And so who knows what tomorrow's bring, but some special things and probably special friends will come out of it.
Yeah. And one of the last things I want to say is oftentimes when we send intentions out into the universe, we think that things aren't happening on the timeline that we want. And I say think because our higher self knows better, and our higher self has a timeline too. But going back to Emerald Isle, it might be the right place and it might not be. We want it to be now, right? We always want what we intend to happen immediately, right now. But that's not always the best for us. I know in the past we've talked about how, when we first started the show, we were like, oh, it'd be great if we had 100,000 downloads a day. I mean, this is like within the first few weeks of starting the show, we're already thinking that, right? But if that happened, what would our lives be like?
We didn't have roots yet.
We were barely keeping up with the show as is. So we didn't have the infrastructure to handle that size of an audience. So it really wasn't the best thing for us to hit 100,000 listeners or downloads in the beginning of the show.
No, everything gets to happen incrementally. I see us having, for instance, a million viewers a day on YouTube, and I see that happening quite quickly. But if that happened today, our lives tomorrow would be flipped upside down and backwards, where we didn't know who we were, how to handle emails, who's calling us about who knows what, because we hadn't built things somewhat incrementally. And so I think we can be on a hockey stick curve upwards, but you still need to get sort of like climbing, and I'm not really a rock climber, but I get the concept. You need to get your pin into the wall first, or into that stone first, so that you can support yourself and bring yourself up to the next level, and then the next level, so that there's a safety if you let go of the rock and fall.
Yeah. And I don't know if you talked about this in other shows already, but the show goes up and down, just like watching the stock market. Those charts, they've got peaks and lows, and it just goes up and down, up and down. And you can see a general trend, and our general trend is upwards. But every once in a while, we have this really huge peak, right? Where we're like reaching for the stars. And then the next day, we might come back down again. And every time we go up like that, it's sort of like a test. Not in like a test, are you worthy kind of test, but more like a test of, do we have all systems in place? Yeah. What do we need to do to prepare for this to happen again?
It challenges us, I think, on several things. First off, it's okay, are all systems in place to handle where you've just put your pickaxe, your ice axe up there, and you're going to pull yourself up now. So do you have that in place? And secondly, check your ego at the door. And so I think of big rock stars or movie stars or anybody who has a show at a real high level, how challenging that must be if you don't have your ego checked at the door to handle the wild kind of swings that they must experience. And so whenever we get that real high now, because we've experienced some highs that then followed by some mega lows afterwards temporarily, you really have to say, am I okay with who I am just as I am rather than at a number? And a lot of people who run shows become addicted to numbers. I could see that possibility with us. We've so far managed to not go there or pull ourselves back. But now whenever I see this massively awesome, incredible day, and we actually had 2 or 3 days like this last week, I call them anomalous. Meaning I'm not going to let my ego get attached to the outcome of how many thousand more people are listening today or how many thousand more people are listening tomorrow. Whatever it is, we're still who we are. And so I think it helps ground us when universe goes at universe pace.
Mm-hmm.
Any last things you want to share? Any intentions you want to set before you go down there tomorrow?
Well, I already mentioned the intentions, which is I'm going down there to meet some really nice people and make some new friends. And I'm just totally open to experiences that I can't even imagine will take place. And I intend for magic to take place.
Woo-hoo!
I have no idea what magic looks like.
If you did, it wouldn't be magic, would it?
But the one thing that came to mind earlier when you were talking about unmooring yourself,
Mm-hmm.
and I was thinking about the water. And when you're in the unknown, you feel like you're in the middle of the water and you're treading water, right? Usually when you picture yourself in the middle of this body of water, you picture yourself treading water. And if you think about the unknown, you might even start thinking about it being choppy water and how the treading of water is a lot of work. But the choppiness of the water, aside from extreme situations or emergency situations, oftentimes the choppiness is just governed by our emotions. So if we can learn to let go and be comfortable with the water, then the waves calm down. And instead of imagining yourself treading water, why not imagine yourself floating on top of it?
You have some experience with this, don't you? I'm thinking back to aqua jogging, which we used for healing on Maui, and the days we went out with 7-foot seas, which was 14 feet top to bottom. And we're like, whee, we're up. Whoa, we're down. Whee, you're wearing your flotation vest as you're jogging along in the water. And I think toward the end, you would just kick back and chill and enjoy the ups and downs and take it for a ride.
Yeah. I think about when you're splashing around in the water, it's even more chaotic. But if you're just floating on top of it, it's so much more peaceful.
I think that's a good thing to put into our minds when hopefully a lot of people will baby step their way after listening to this into great change. Because I do think there is something greater for all of us. And you may not know in your heart exactly what it is, but you know you get to take action. And so if we can think of it being, I'll call it kind, gentle, easy, good. We're going to go play in the waves, but we're going to play in the waves kind, gentle, easy, good. We're not going to fight the waves. We're not going to beat against or flail in the waves. We're just going to go tippy-toe our way into the waves.
Yeah. And over time, the waves don't have to be so big and scary anymore. Right? Because really, what makes change difficult?
Fear, resistance.
It's our emotional reactions. And just like your recent guest, Lisa
Bennett
Bennett was saying, our emotions are really what we anticipate happening in the future. So if we're working to let go of attachment to the future, of what we want the future to look like, then we can let go of more of the emotions that are anticipating the future.
That's huge. Bringing it back home to you're going tomorrow. If you had an attachment to, I expect X, Y, Z to take place.
Yeah,
Any attachment.
I could go down there going, I expect this place to be the place to live for the rest of our lives. To put our roots down, build a nest, have children, blah, blah, blah. And I expect to come back with the perfect rental. And if that didn't happen, then I would come back saying that trip was awful. It was a huge disappointment. It went like not according to plan whatsoever. That might still happen. I mean, not happening according to plan. I mean the ending up finding the perfect rental and
No attachment though. No attachment. All right. I think we're good. Anything else you want to share? Because usually you say, wait, there's this one last thing.
No, I'm just wondering if Sir Meowsers was up and about. I heard some noise.
Yes, Sir Meowsers was starting to tear things up as he's saying, it's time for you guys to get rolling on here since I do have a second interview. And Nuts the squirrel took a jump off of the desk in his general direction.
Okay, because I saw you giving me this weird look and you're like kind of shifty-eyed and my programming says, oh my God, I've just lost the attention of my listener here and I've obviously done a poor job of engaging the audience and I've screwed up everything.
Oh, no. I do not want you thinking that. This has been a beautiful interview. Please, everyone, write in and give us your thoughts on the show, particularly the positive ones. Telling Jessica how she did, because the more she hears how she's doing, the more comfortable she'll be on the mic, the more I believe it's very important. No, I don't want to put any pressure on you. I think you have a lot to share when you feel comfortable sharing it. And so I'm always hoping for a positive experience for you. And I hope our audience gets the most positive experience out of it. Because what you share is from, even though we live similar lives, meaning we go where the other person goes as a general rule, you have an extremely different take and perspective and feel for everything. And I think it's as important to have your voice out as it is my voice.
Thank you. And I want to thank you for persevering and allowing me to take a second shot at recording a show today. Because I know I added an extra 45 minutes to your already busy day. And it means a lot to me that you don't get angry or upset with me when I have a meltdown.
Never push the pookie. All right. On that beautiful note, for everyone out there, this is Michael Sandler and
Jessica Lee
saying, be well, have fun, step out of your comfort zone and step into the magic and shine bright. Woohoo! Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like below. Also, leave your comments. Have some real fun with it. Subscribe to our channel where you're going to get more great videos, more interviews coming up. And check out our website, inspirenationshow.com. That's where you'll find tips, blogs, information, videos you won't find anywhere else, and useful and helpful resources to really help you kickstart your life and to shine bright. Thanks so much again. Thank you for your support. Like, comment, subscribe. See the website. Thanks so much and have fun. Of course, shine bright. Woohoo!